Hello and welcome to episode 52 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is May 25th, 2020. Today I'm wearing two rather old pieces, old but still very loved, and this is just a simple cowl, but it's also a haramaki. Just in case any of you don't know what haramaki means, it's a Japanese word for belly warmer, and it's like a cowl, and you can wear it just the way I'm wearing it now, but you can also wear it as a hat, and if you use two different colors, you can turn it inside out, so you have two different ways of wearing it. You can just wear it like so, or you can wear it as a mix of a hat and a cowl, or you can wear it as a belly warmer if it has the right size for you. So this is a Japanese design, so most Japanese women can wear the same size around their head and around their hips, but if you're not Asian, this might be difficult. And this, I think, is the first haramaki that I knit out of thicker yarn. So this is sock yarn, but worsted weight, so it's like normal, like fingering weight held double. And I use the same yarn throughout, so that's why I can't make two different hats. And it's just a simple seat stitch cowl. I added a little handmade button on one edge just for fun. And actually I love to wear this as a belly warmer when I'm in my shop in winter and it gets really cold, and I can just wear it underneath my trousers or skirt or whatever I have, and it gives me a nice warm back. So it usually lives in my shop. I don't usually take it home, but I just wear it around my shop, and most of the time you can't see it, but sometimes I will wear it around my neck or even around my head, so you can see the nice glittery yarn. It's a Rico yarn, sock yarn with glitter from many years ago, so I don't think you can still get the colorway. And before I put it back on, I'll show you my jumper, my pullover. This was a Wollerödel yarn. That's the yarn shop that I used to work for, and it's a bulky weight cotton yarn with 75% cotton and 25% nylon. And I just knit a very simple top-down raglan pullover. And as you can see, the colors are a bit weird at some places. So the yarn itself has been discontinued, but even back when we were selling the yarn, there was a problem with this colorway. So we weren't supposed to sell the colorway, and I think we were just supposed to throw it away. And I thought it's just too bad, and I knew that there was a problem with the color bleeding, and I knew that the color wasn't the same throughout. So but I was able to use the yarn. I could just have it, and I was careful with washing it the first couple of times because of the bleeding, and I don't mind this line going through the pullover. This is just like a little design feature, and it makes it my special pullover that nobody else has exactly like it. The pattern, I didn't really follow a proper pattern for this pullover, but I got my inspiration from this book, Knitting Sweaters Top Down, and I kind of mixed two pullovers that are in here. So the book explains how to knit raglan pullovers top down. So basically, if you swatch, you can just knit any pullover you like. And at the back of the book, there are all these tables with numbers where you can choose your gauge and the size you want to knit, and it gives you numbers for just everything. So it's a very clever book, I think. And but just to give you some ideas, there are several pullovers or jackets that they've knit, and I mixed two of these projects, and this is one of them. It's called Birch, and I used the turtleneck from that pullover But then for the rest of the pullover, I went with this pullover with this ribbing, long ribbing detail and long ribbing here. And so I kind of mixed those two ideas, and I made a swatch, and I got the numbers from the book. And I even put all the numbers on my Ravelry page. So if anyone was interested and wanted to knit something similar, you can have a look at those numbers. So it has this long ribbing at the neck, has a few short rows so the front doesn't come up too high. It has the long ribbing on the arms, and then the ribbing starts really high and goes all the way down. Yep, and I like it very much. It's a very soft yarn because of all the cotton in it, but because it's bulky, it's still a bit warmer than the typical cotton pullover, and I just love it for this in between times when it's not really warm but it's not really cold. Yeah, and I love the color, so I was really happy I could get it, even though we weren't supposed to sell it. So that's what I'm wearing today. Now on to my finished objects, and this week it's really funny. I had 2 weeks time to knit, as I didn't do an episode last week. As I had planned, I did my Opal subscription box unboxing video last week. So if you want to have a look at that, look at my German YouTube channel, Kiko's podcast, Kikos Strickschule. And but because I can only open the box once and I can only be surprised once, I only did it in German. So you can have a look at the German one if you're interested in the yarn. But what I was trying to say is that all 3 finished objects I have this week, you haven't seen before. So 2 of them I cast on and finished since doing my last proper episode. And the other object is a bit of a cheat because that's been sitting around for years and years and years. I'll start with that. I finished my toe socks. So these are socks that have a separate big toe on them. So that's something funny and different. And the yarn again is a mix of cotton and wool. I think it's long been discontinued. I knitted the first of these socks years and years ago, pre-Ravelry times, when the yarn was new. And yeah, I got the pattern from this little book. It's called Stricken to knit socks. And Tanja Steinbach is a very well-known German designer. I wasn't even aware that the book was by her. And back then the short row heel was something new. So it says with a new heel. And it has these beautiful socks. And I took the inspiration from these socks, but I had to change the numbers because the yarn I used is thicker. I think it was like DK weight, and I had to change the numbers. But I finished the first sock. I put it in the shop where I used to work for people to see. And then I started the second sock and I finished it except for the toe. And it's been lying around in my cupboard like this for, I don't know, something between 5 and 8 years. I have no idea when I started these socks. But the other day a friend came by and she knit socks. She was about to knit socks like these, and she had some questions about the instructions that she was using. And I looked at it and I said, oh, you know what? I started knitting those years ago. And I got these out of the cupboard, and then I decided, now I'm going to finish them. So I sat down that afternoon and I just finished the toe. And I think I even managed to get them to be the same, even though there's years in between. Yeah, but now I'm really happy I have them. I can wear them with flip-flops or with guitar or with Birkenstock shoes that have this thing in between the toes. So yeah, I hope to get somewhere out of these this summer. So this is a bit of a cheat because, most of it was knitted years and years ago. But they're finished now. And I really want to try and finish some of my really old whips this year. So I have several things lying around, some here in the shop, some at home, that I've started knitting many years ago. And I think it's about time to try and finish as many of them as possible. But at the same time, I started so many new things, so we'll see how that goes. Project number 2 are these spiral socks. I did start different grown-up spiral socks last week, 2 weeks ago, But then I started these in between because there's a new baby that arrived and that needs warm socks. Oh, these are the socks for the big brother. So I started with these. So these are kids' socks. I think the boy is about 3 years old and he can wear them with his little foot and a long leg. And then as he grows, his foot grows, the leg will just get shorter and he can wear them for a long time. I used sock yarn held double. So one color is a 100 Wasser color. It's a special color by Opal. And then the other color is a blue out of the series Elegant. And my sister knit a baby blanket with those 2 colors, and that's why I used them for these socks. And now I need to knit a pair of baby socks, and then we can send all that to the new owners. Yeah, but that's just a very quick and simple spiral socks for kids. I did my usual knit 3, purl 3 pattern, but instead of changing the pattern around after 4 rounds, I changed after 3 rounds because of the thick yarn. Otherwise, it would have gotten too long, I think. And I did spiral one this way and one that way, just for fun. So that's the spiral socks for kids. And then the third finished object is this nice, beautiful little hat. This is a design by Yuki Knits again. It's another test knit I'm doing. And the pattern, the working name is Fog. I'm not quite sure she's going to stick with this name, but I decided, or I offered to knit the middle size, and I did not do a gauge swatch, and my gauge is too small. So the hat, that's why the hat's really small. I think it's a very beautiful kid's hat, but it came out smaller than it was supposed to, but because my gauge was too small, so that kind of fits. But I really like the feel of the yarn and the pattern, and so I'm knitting, I'll show you a bit later, I'm knitting a second hat with the same pattern, but I'm going to do a few changes to get it to be the right size without changing the gauge. So I'll let the designer know all my changes and the problems I had, even though they're not really problems. I think it's a very beautiful hat, and I'm sure I'll find someone who it will fit. Yeah, so these are my finished objects for this week, and on to my works in progress. And 2 weeks ago, I had already started quite a few new things, and yeah, I must admit, I kind of did continue during the last 2 weeks. So the first sock I'm going to show you are the cotton shorties that I started 2 weeks ago with this Opal cotton premium yarn, and I finished the first. So this is just a small shorty sock. I just did a rolled edge, so I just knit straight down for a couple of rounds, and then I did a short row heel, and then I added some short rows after I finished the heel. That's what I was trying to explain last time. So I finished the heel about here, and instead of going back to knitting in the round, I kept knitting short rows and adding 2 stitches on each side every time I turned around until I got to the middle, and then I started knitting in the round. And what it means is that that this bit is sort of a bit straighter. It doesn't get folded up like this as a normal sock does. And what this is supposed to do is when you wear the sock, that the back won't slide down, so that it will stay on the foot nice and proper. Yeah, otherwise it's just a very simple shorty sock. Finished the first one and just about started the second one. Haven't done a lot yet, just the rolled edge. I still need to add a few rows until I can start with the heel. So sock number 1. Sock number 2 is the spiral sock I started 2 weeks ago. Haven't finished the first one yet, but I've added just a bit of length. I was This is the first time I'm using the color, and when I was knitting up, when I got here, I thought it would be the same green as here, and I thought this is a color repeat, and I thought it's quite nice. And I was really surprised when it went on with blue, and then another green, and this is the color repeat. So this is a really long color repeat, but I like it. I think it's very nice and happy spring colors, and yeah, so this is just a very nice project for on the go, in between, just add a few stitches here and there. It's again my knit 3 purl 3 pattern, but with this sock, because it's the normal sock weight yarn, I switch every 4 rounds. Yeah, not much to say about that. It's Opal Fairytale, beautiful color. I enjoy knitting that. And then I started another pair of socks, and that was because I'm taking part in another knit along. It's a mystery knit along in a German knitting group called Kunkelstube. So this is called the Kunkel the Kunkel knit along, and it's a mystery knit along. One of the members of this group designed this pattern. I think her name's Annette. I'll link it down below, and it links to the original pattern, and it's a free pattern, so you can go and download it if you want it. And as it's supposed to be a sock with a pattern, I chose this yarn, which is one of the Opal subscription yarns, Opal Abo yarns, that weren't in the last box, but in the box before. And because it doesn't have very strong contrast of colors, I thought it might be nice to do a patterned sock with this, so that the pattern shows. And the first part of the pattern was released on Saturday, and then the next 3 parts will be released the coming Saturdays. And I started the ribbing, and this is as far as I got. I haven't finished part 1 yet. There's a few more rows of ribbing to come, and then there's 5 more rounds that sort of lead towards the first part of the pattern, of the next part of the pattern. And because it's a mystery knit along, and both socks are going to be the same, I decided to knit them at the same time, and to do that on a circular needle. I don't magic loop very often. It's not my preferred method of knitting, as I'm a very tight knitter, and I sometimes have trouble pushing the needle back into my stitches, even though this is a really good needle with very smooth connection. I won the needle in one of Knitting Expats knit-alongs, and I'm really happy I won this needle. I love knitting with it. So yeah, it's one of the reasons I do magic loop, because I have this beautiful needle, but also because I wanted to do both socks at the same time, and I didn't have 2 sets of double pointed needles in this size, which is, by the way, 2.75. That's my preferred needle size for normal sock yarn. And as I just have the one ball in this color, as it's a subscription ball of yarn, I'm using both ends of the ball, so one end that comes from the inside and one end that's on the outside, and that's why they look different. Funnily, both had a bit of green at the beginning, and then one sock starts off with the light grey and one starts with the dark grey, so they will be different, which is something I enjoy a lot in my socks. So that's all the socks I'm knitting, and I started a pair of wrist warmers last week out of this beautiful alpaca lace yarn by Hansa Farm, and I have finished the first one. So this is what the pattern looks like. I did 3 pattern repeats, 1, 2, 3. I just did 3 rounds of ribbing at the beginning and at the end, and I love the pattern. You have to concentrate a little bit because you have to look at the pattern every row. There's no in-between rows, but I think it's a beautiful pattern. It's a wonderful yarn, and yeah, this is what they look like. And you can choose to pull them completely on your arm if you want your hands free. You can pull it up a little bit. You could even pull it, fold it over to have a bit more warmth on your wrist. Yeah, I love them. Really enjoy knitting them. and I have started the second one, and I have finished half a pattern repeat. I've just started the second half of the pattern repeat. This is what that looks like. Yep. So I enjoy knitting on those. The ball of yarn doesn't really look like I've knit anything at all, which is quite amazing. This 50-gram ball of yarn has 400 meters yardage, so yeah, you get a lot out of that. That's all. Oh no, there's one more project that I have on double pointed needles, and that's another gnome, another never not gnoming gnome, but I couldn't finish it. I did the hat. I'm knitting the body in the same color. It's Wolldackel yarn that I bought last year in Düsseldorf at the Yarn Festival, and I'm not quite sure. I plan to knit clothing for this gnome again, just like the last one I did, and maybe I'm not giving this gnome a beard. Maybe it'll just get braids and a big nose, of course arms, and then maybe I'll knit a pullover, and so that the pullover is more visible. I might omit the beard. I'm not too sure yet. We'll see what it looks like when it has its nose, and depending on which of the clothes I want to knit, I'll decide then. So that's another gnome. That's all the small projects I'm working on. On to some other things. Haramaki. This is one haramaki, and I started knitting another haramaki 2 weeks ago. This one's for my aunt, and this is what it looks like at the moment. It's a very old opal ball. No idea what the color name is, what series it's from, but this is what it looks like now. And it is a really, really long strip of knitting, of garter stitch knitting, but as I said last time, this is going to be the edge, one edge, and this is going to be the other edge, so the knitting will kind of go around like this, and it won't be quite as long as it looks now. I haven't managed to put in I could have put in the single color yarn anytime I wanted, but I decided to try and do the 20 centimeters on this edge before I put in the other color. And once I've put in the 6 centimeters of single color, then I'll have half the haramaki finished, and then I know I'll be sort of knitting towards the end, and I hope this is going to motivate me, because it's fairly boring to knit this. I'm really looking forward to the finished object, but the knitting itself is pretty simple, and I try and do that when I'm doing something else at the same time, like watch a movie or watch a podcast, something like that. So that's that. Then I already told you that I'm knitting another hat in my test knit. This is the same yarn that I used for this hat. It's just the grey color. It's opal sock yarn, worsted weight. German it's called 8-ply, and it's the same pattern. I used the same number of stitches because I was quite happy with the width of the brim, but I did forget to go down a needle size. So I used a bigger needle for this brim than I did for this, but I don't think it'll be a problem. And then you increase stitches before you start the pattern, and I think the width is quite okay. I think what makes this hat too small is it's too short. So what I'm planning to do is I'm going to knit more pattern repeats on this hat, and then I'm going to wash and block it, and then I'll see how it fits, and then I'll send, I forget the designer's name, the designer behind Yuki Knits. I'll send her all the information and the pictures of what I've knit, and I hope it's going to help her. Yeah, so this is... I'd hoped to finish it during the weekend, but I left it in the shop. I forgot to bring it home, so that's why it's not finished. It was supposed to be finished by today, but I'll finish it tonight. Okay, so that's that. Then I started a baby surprise jacket. Opal Abo yarn, subscription yarn, that's one of the topics of today. This is another one of these abo yarns, subscription yarns. So this is one of those boxes where you get 6 balls of yarn. You have no idea what color you'll get. And once, can't remember how long ago it was, we had 2 balls of yarn with these very clear stripes. And the other color I knit into socks for myself. And this color I really liked, very bright and beautiful colors. The only thing I didn't like about this ball of yarn is that there are 2 colors here that are almost the same, but they're not quite the same. And but it looks as if this stripe was double the width of the other ones. So that's part of the reason I didn't knit with it in the beginning. And then at some point I decided I was going to just put another color in between here. And I decided to use this color. Thought it was a nice addition. And I started knitting a baby surprise jacket, a pattern by Elizabeth Zimmerman. And stripy yarn is very good for this pattern because it shows off the different directions that you knit. So I have decreases here and then I have increases there, and the whole thing looks really funny if you don't know how you're supposed to put it together as a jacket. And I started with a contrast color just for this is the cuff of the sleeve, then there's some increases there. Then I started the opal yarn, the abo yarn, and then when I got to this color I put the purple in between, and I'll keep doing that as I go along. Yeah, so this is for another baby that appeared some time ago, and I hope she'll like it, or her mum will like it. The babies don't really have an opinion yet, do they? Now, what else? I added 2 squares to my memories blanket. Yep. So last week, 2 weeks ago, I showed you these 3 squares, and this was one of the colors I used for the Sea Holly Cowl test knit, and that was the other color that I used. So I put both colors next to each other in the blanket, and then I added this opal cotton premium color. I knit socks. I knit just some lace pattern socks with this color, and I thought it looked nice there. And so I finished this side, and then I'm going to add squares on this side so that it's going to be a square again. Yep, and then I knitted on my shorts, my Stephen West Känguruhs, and I was working on one of those side strips that attached the back and the front, and I finished the strip. Oh, this is rather long. So this is finished. I put the stitches on waste yarn, and at the end there'll be an I-cord edging around here. Now the next thing I'll do is do the same strip on this side, and then in between, and then at some point I can finish it. So this is the Känguruhs, and it's getting a bit warm. I'll just get rid of this for a moment. What else? Oh yeah, pullovers and jackets. I continued knitting on my Hitofude jacket. So it doesn't really look a lot different because I'm just adding length to the front and backs now, and I have added 2.5 pattern repeats of this lace pattern, and I have 3 more rows to go before I do the next increase, and then I will have to try it on and make a decision on whether to do more increases. These are all the increases that are in the pattern, and yep, beautiful color, beautiful yarn, beautiful pattern, very clever pattern that makes you knit the whole thing in one go without ever attaching a new piece of yarn. And my ball of yarn is slowly, very slowly shrinking a little bit, but there's still loads and loads of yarn here, so that's why I want to make it longer than the pattern calls for, and that's why I'm thinking I might add a few more increases. We'll see. Then I continued knitting on my fade lace pullover. This is Drachenwolle that I've had for years. And I started off with this light color, then I faded in the second color. I finished my rows of the second color. I think I didn't put in quite as many rows as I'd first planned because then it would have gotten too long. I'm not a very tall person. And then I faded in the third color, and now I'm only knitting with the third color. And this is what the third color looks like as a ball. And I kind of thought that the black would be mixed in everywhere, like the white up here. But yeah, it made these stripes. And so I didn't want them all stacked on top of each other. So I decreased 2 stitches. And that made the black sort of move over, so to speak. And yeah, it's quite funny. So I'll knit few more rows with that color, and then I'll do the ribbing in that color. Yeah, looks different than I expected, but I still like it. Once I finish the back and front, I will knit the sleeves in the second color and probably finish it in the second color. So I'm planning on this being not a short sleeve, but like half-length sleeve. Yeah, and because I enjoy knitting pullovers and because I love my Opal Abu yarn, I started another pullover. Yeah, I just had the castamitis. This is one of the most beautiful colors that they ever had in the subscription, I think. And when I unpacked it in front of the camera, I was really, really happy, and I think it was quite obvious how much I loved the color. So several people have offered to swap this color for another color. So I have several balls of yarn in this color now, so I can knit something bigger than just a pair of socks or a cowl. And I started knitting a pullover. And I had seen someone knit this color combined with white as a pair of socks, and I really loved the combination, and I decided I want to combine this color with white and do some pattern into the pullover. And then I looked through several books of mine, and then I ended up with this book. And I knit the hat once years ago. I planned to knit the gloves, and I haven't yet. So I chose several patterns out of this book, and the main pattern was supposed to be this star pattern. So I wanted to have that on the yoke and then 2 smaller patterns on top of it. And so I started knitting. This is the ribbing, and this is the first small pattern that I chose. And this is starting here with this band. This is the second pattern. And yeah, and I was supposed to finish this pattern and then add the big snowflake. And I tried it on the other day, and I think by the time I finished the second pattern and done the next increase, the yoke is going to be almost finished. You can look at on Ravelry. I put the picture of me wearing this, and it's fairly long. I'm not too sure. Don't have that much experience with designing color work and yeah, this kind of pullover. But I'll finish the pattern, I'll do the increase, and then I'll try it on again. I'll probably measure it against another pullover that I already have to see how much yoke I need. But I do think that the pattern is going to be too big. So I might just repeat the small pattern underneath and finish the yoke that way. And then I might put the big snowflake at the bottom, on the bottom of my pullover, on top of the ribbing, or I'll just keep it for the next pullover. I might just stick with these 2 patterns. They look nice, and right now I'm not really sure what to do. I was thinking of maybe just keep repeating the 2 patterns and do a all over pattern pullover, or maybe just repeat one of them on top of the ribbing. I don't know yet. But the basic instruction for this pullover is from Tin Can Knits, and it's from their Strange Brew. That's an ebook that you can buy, and it explains how to knit these yoke pullovers, color work pullovers, either top down or bottom up. It explains where to put the pattern, how to increase the stitches. The instructions are written for 3 different gauges. Oh, by the way, that's part of the problem. I did not do a gauge swatch. Because I knit so much with sock yarn, I hardly ever do a gauge swatch when I knit with sock yarn, and I kind of check as I'm going. But I think with color work, my gauge changes quite a bit. And I did go down a needle size because I know that my knitting loosens up with color work. But I think that's part of the reason the yoke's getting too long, or would get too long with the number of rows that the pattern calls for. Yeah, so it's all my mistake. It's not the pattern's fault. It's my fault, and but it doesn't matter. I'll make it work somehow. And I just love the colors. I'm really happy with how the colors are coming out. I love the combination with the white, and I can't wait to go on knitting on this pullover. So, one more project. I haven't shown you my Haruni knit along that I'm doing in my on this YouTube channel and in my Ravelry group. And I must admit, I did not continue much on this. I think I added 2 more pattern repeats, so nothing much has changed here. I'm still planning on doing another tutorial on how to do the next pattern chart. Yeah, but otherwise I haven't really done a lot. This is the Opal 3-ply yarn, and I still enjoy it. I still like it. I was just too distracted with all the other things I started knitting. So we'll see how that goes on. And once I've done the next video, I'll probably be more motivated to keep going so that I can knit the new chart on my shawl. Yeah, so that's all I knit and crocheted during the last 2 weeks. I hope you enjoyed watching my projects grow and all the little things I had to tell you about them. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!